Well, kids, welcome again. It's that time. Another edition of Rimshots with Sean, brought to you by Barstools and Bandtalk. And hey, anybody can have a podcast because you can't break it. You can even mess up the intro and it'll still go well. I have a brand new friend here. I've got Vern Springer. He's in the Detroit area, band Hand Mojo. And I'll say that my good buddy, Gina, set this up. I've got to know Gina. And Vern, we're going to talk about networking because she's in LA.
Yep.
I'm in Halifax, Nova Scotia. You're in Detroit, and we're talking right now. So welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here. I appreciate it.
We're going to do our best to not have this turn into a hockey conversation, which took place before we started recording, which is great. And being from Detroit, I would expect nothing less because, I mean, you might as well say that people from Detroit are as big hockey fans as anybody from Canada.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We love it. It's religion here, too. And we grew up with the CBC being this close, too. So, Monty Python, all that stuff. Yeah. So.
And thank you for not holding that against us. I do truly appreciate that. Have government-funded TV, and as you may or may not know, we're big government-funded people up here in Canada. We like our government funding, and so you never know what you're going to get with our friends south of the border. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Secondhand Mojo. Gina gave me a little bit of info, but you go from being a sports guy, a hockey guy, to getting into music, and you've got this band. Tell me a little bit about who and what you guys are.
So it's five guys, right? The members are myself, Scott Brokaw, who is our drummer, and Scott and I came from another band that had kind of run its course and decided that I still had things to say musically and wanted to keep going. And I like playing in front of people. I like creating new music. So we agreed on that. Then we have Chuck Rippinoff, who is our lead singer and kind of the Toastmaster of the Mojos. When you go see us, he's like a wind-up toy, man. He goes just a million miles an hour. It's fantastic to watch. He's got more energy than three people that I've ever met. So
love it.
After that, we have Mark Q Speck, right? And his name is actually MARQ, right? But he goes by Q to us guys. And he and I played in another band with David Winans from the Gospel Family, the Winans. Right? And so when we started putting this together, I told him we were looking for a keyboard player, and would he be interested? He came and joined. He's been with us ever since. Another guy with an amazing amount of energy. One of the things you got to see at a live show is, you look over and where'd Q go? Oh, he's under the keyboard playing behind his back, or he's he's just another one of those guys, just a show unto himself. We have James Hampton, our bass player, was brought to us by Chuck. They actually knew each other back in their college days when they played in like friendly competitions band. They were kind of the two big dogs in the neighborhood, right? And so James is a wildly accomplished bass player, probably the best musician in the band if I had to pick one of us. So what we do is all original, classic, new classic rock. Really, if you're from the Midwest, or really to be honest with you, if you're from Canada, some of this will sound familiar, right? Because we share similar sensibilities that way as well. We've been together now 6 years, 2 EPs, and getting ready to start working on a first full-length album. So
nice. Not gonna lie, pains me that you tell me that a bass player is the best player in the band, but I'll just have to deal with that. That's a me thing, not a you thing. Being a drummer and all myself. What would your comparables be in terms of sound and writing and to other bands? And I hate to compare, but just to kind of set it up for people that maybe have never heard you before, but we want to get them to hear you guys.
If you like classic rock from the 70s,
yep.
Right, 60s, 70s, 80s, right, even a little into the 90s, right, will sound familiar and you like us. My influences are the dyed-in-the-wool, like 50s, 60s R&B, blues, and then all that great, classic rock, Humble Pie, the Stones, right? I love the Beatles, so that's in there too. We all bring a little something different to the table, which we kind of mix up, and that's our amalgam, right? That creates what becomes Mojo tunes, if you will. Right. The cool part is we're enough under the radar. We're like this most recent album was one of our most organic, developed amongst the band, right? But also our most diversified in sound. There's you can hear hints of U2 in some of it, right? You can hear just straight up blues in other parts. There's a southern rock component to it, right? So there's a little bit of everything there. It's not hard to pick out our influences once you hear us. The funny part is about the comparison. I've actually started keeping track of what people mention, right? Because it's always these weird combinations. Like my favorite so far up to this point here, bar none, this is the leader of the pack, right? You guys sound just like Huey Lewis in the News and Motley Crue.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah,
as somebody that grew up as I hate the term hair metal, but I grew up in that era. Yeah. I loved Huey Lewis. I loved, all that stuff. So,
They're
yeah,
they're the Matchbox 20 of our generation, really, to be honest with you.
oh, no question. And,
Yep.
it's super sad that he,
Oh,
can't continue to go.
yep, yep. So, and we're big Motown fans here too. So that's obviously being so close, right? That's a
Well,
uh,
that's a given.
Framingham.
I would say if you weren't a Motown fan living in Detroit, you'd be asked to leave. That'd be probably a fair assessment.
It'd be hard to travel around here without the papers, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah, no question. No question. Can you just give me one quick second? I
yeah,
just got to hit pause just for a second.
you're fine, man. Go ahead.
And we're back. Sorry about that blip, but it never happened on Barstools before. So hey, Vern, you're a first, bud. So there we go. Here's something I want to ask you because this stuff fascinates me. I talk about networking a lot, and sometimes it's like, oh, here he goes. He talks about networking again. However, it's irrefutable that it's probably the reason why people get ahead. What's your relationship with Gina, and how did you meet Gina? Because her and I met kind of in a deep way, but I'd love to hear the story.
So we played a show. So this is funny. This is kind of a weird one too. We got asked to play a show by a guy who had come and seen us a couple different times at other venues, and his band was coming out of semi-retirement. Right, they had a new album out, and whatnot, and so they asked us to be on the bill with them. And the other band on the bill for this show at the Token here in Westland, which is kind of like an iconic club here. That's where I've seen everybody and their brother over there at one point or another, right? And so we've opened for everybody and their brother over there now. So, but the guy that called me, we actually went to middle school together,
Oh wow.
right? And we knew a bunch of the same people and all that kind of fun stuff. It was just one of those weird coincidences. And so we met the guys from the Van Go-Go's and it had a great time at the show. Both bands were a lot of fun to be around. It was a good network and a good hang. And the Van Go-Go's were great and they were super complimentary and just super friendly. So I knew they were kind of a DIY band as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? Meaning none of us have label backing, right? And so I just asked, I go, who does your PR and stuff, And so they asked me to speak to Jason, who was their lead guitar player, and I think probably the de facto leader. And because he's the guy who handles that. And so sure enough, I talked to him, and again, what a great guy. I can't thank him enough. He's done wonders for us, and we played other shows since. And he goes, the lady who does it is Gina. I'm like, can you do me a favor? Can you make the introduction? So he made the introduction. We did the initial chat and all that kind of fun stuff and sent some stuff over. And then she got back to us. And since then, she's been our PR. She's helped book some shows. She's, basically like the den mother, talks me off the ledge when I'm, losing my mind. And, so she's invaluable. So she in turn led us to the guy who does our website, right? Paul, right? Which is another one too. He helped rescue us from Reverb Nation because I had paid for the domain name through that whole craziness to get secondhandmojo.com and wrestling that from them was just
Yep.
a miserable experience. And he had it done in short time and designed the website, updates the website for us. Couldn't say more about him if I tried. Which then also led us to Sarah because we wanted new merch stuff and I was trying to do some branding with this round for the EP because previously we had basically just a logo, right? And so our merch was just a logo that was designed by a guy who's not in the band anymore, but is still a great guy, right? And a big fan and a big friend. But I wanted to kind of move us to brand a little more, right? So including shirts and all the other stuff, I wanted to look alike, which is a big deal, right? When you get to certain levels, you can kind of just throw it at the wall, but then you want to go this direction. And because we're kind of a vintagey sounding band, I wanted us to have all the artwork, all the stuff to be kind of like vintage ad stuff. So I don't know if Gina showed you the one, but one of our shirts and one of our ads when we released our beer was 4 to 5 dentists recommend, and the fifth one's a jerk, but it's like one of those old 50s, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Dentist guys, like that. And it's our beer, so it's on a t-shirt, but I
yeah.
like the vintagey look and it kind of matches our sound and what we're doing. So we're trying to marry that stuff together. And Sarah's been not just the gal who does our artwork. She runs our socials now. She comes and sells merch at shows, right? She's another one that I hadn't talked to her in a while because she had been busy and on vacation. I didn't want to bother her. So she called because she hadn't heard me. I just want to check on you, make sure everything's okay. So
Yeah.
we don't do friends, we do family. Once you're in, right? It's like the mob. If you're a mojo, you're a mojo for life, right? So and I like that because I don't like to hop around to different resources and different things. Everybody offers something, in one way or another. But I don't collect acquaintances. I'd rather collect family members, right? And so that's the way we kind of approach this.
I love what you're saying there because I had a conversation with somebody this morning, and I mean, every scene has tinges of the same thing, and then every scene has tinges of greatness. But one of the, I guess, the constants that you hear about is, just a lack of support and a lack of respect sometimes amongst fellow musicians. And, I was telling somebody this morning, like I've had the absolute pleasure of getting to know a lot of A-listers, and they all have one thing in common. They never talk crappy about anybody. If they trust you, they refer you to people. And they're always professional. And I find that the people below the A-listers sometimes don't have that. And when I say it, it kind of sounds around here like a broken record. But when you say some stuff like that, it's kind of like, that question wasn't to reaffirm what I'm saying, but it's like it just further proves that this business doesn't have to be as hard as everybody makes it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would tell you that it's funny too because I had a manager years ago for a different band that I played in that we were signed and went on tour and all that kind of fun stuff. And I had a bad night, and so we're settling up with the owners of the club and all that fun stuff. And I'm not even involved in that conversation, but I'm just like cussing myself, seriously upset with myself, right? And so they thought I was mad with them, right?
Yeah.
And so they said something to our manager and stuff like that, and he pulled me aside and he pulled the other guys aside and he goes, "Hey, look." And we've had this conversation amongst us as Mojos too, and I've told everybody, my kids know this story, right? Is that you may never be the best band in the world. You might not even be a good band, right?
Yep.
But I promise you one thing: if we're going to work together, you're going to be the nicest people they meet every single time.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, it opens so many doors in so many different ways. With the people that pay to see you, the people that you're going to work with, the other bands, all that fun stuff, it doesn't hurt to just be nice. And I think that's one of the things that sadly is not in abundance these days. Right. And so it's nice to be that beacon, right? I mean, if we can be, so.
Yeah, no, and you know what? I totally agree because like when I met Gina, it was through, she was repping a song by Pete Lauren, who I got to know Pete through a friend of mine and Bobby Sisk in Phoenix. But I come to find out that another friend that Bobby recommended or introduced me to was this guy, Chris Catero, who's a legend out there. And Chris recommended Gina to Pete. It was the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. And when I heard that story, and I'm hearing your story, people just need to realize, first and foremost, it's like talent is one thing, but it's being a good human being is what attracts people to people, right?
Well, I think so. We've had a run in the last probably year and a half, and we open a lot for nationals and stuff, right? I'll bet you this might be the best run in the last 20 years that we've had as far as just the wonderful musicians that we've met. One of my favorite, we played with Brother Kane a couple of times.
Yep.
Right. And Damon, the entire band, their management, the crew, their guitar tech, Tim, right, are just the sweetest, nicest dudes ever. When we opened for them the first time, we waited till our sound checks done, and you got to move in and do all that kind of craziness. As soon as we were done with that, Damon and a couple of the other guys and Tim, the guitar tech, came down to our little dressing room there and came in just to thank us for doing it. I thought, you know what? That's a class move, right? Because how many times you play with other people and they don't even know you're there, right? They've never met you. You go, oh, I played with so-and-so. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to meet him, so.
Can I tell you a funny story about Damon?
Sure.
So I get this email from a PR person, and they had seen an interview that I did that made blabbermouth, and they're like, "We've got an artist. Would you interview him?" I'm like, "Sure." Like I'm open door policy, right? So they sent me the info, and I was busy with some stuff this particular day, and it was like, "Oh man, I didn't have a chance to prep." So I'm like, "Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go on. I'm going to skate because I'm pretty good at directing conversation or whatever." So I go on and introduce him. And he starts talking, and I figure out within 20 seconds, this dude plays with Skinner. This dude plays with Brother Kane. He's played in Thin Lizzy. And I'm going like, don't I feel like a knob? And at the end of it, I said, I have to apologize because normally I'm better prepared. Yeah. He's like, that was amazing. That was like, he couldn't have been a nicer guy. And the thing that it taught me is there's a guy at that level that, and I went back and looked at the interview, and it wasn't bad, but I mean, he could have ripped me to shreds, and he didn't. Meanwhile, a guy in my own backyard a week later, I asked some question he doesn't like, and he hears me doing it. I'm like, okay, come on, whose opinion is going to be a little bit more of an afterthought? You know what I mean? Yeah. So I love stories like that because it's like we were talking about the hockey thing, right? Bern? Like you meet these heroes of yours, and it's always great when they're cool people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's always.
Yep.
So back to you guys. So you're saying you're opening for some nationals and you're doing some things like that. How many shows, I guess, have you guys been able to get in 2024? Because I know it's been a little wacky since 2020, but how's your calendar and your shows and all that been looking?
We just took a little over a month off. That's how busy we've been because they were all big shows, all festival stuff. We just opened for Mark Varner down at the in Toledo there at the amphitheater on August 3rd. And then it was like, you know what, between the rehearsals and writing the new stuff and all the shows, it was just time for a break because we've been going crazy since really
Yep.
since March, so it's been very good. We've had a great year. We've got more shows coming. They're all bigger shows, which is cool. That's the transition we're trying to make, but I bet you we're in the 30 or 40 range, somewhere in that ballpark there.
Wow. So, and the whole DIY band, because I mean, with the stuff that I do for Michelle up here, I mean, that's what I do. I mean,
Yep.
I use my network and what have you. What advice would you give to bands that are doing that? Because everybody, the Spotify argument, we all know what that is, and the socials, and do I try to sign with a major versus doing an independent? What advice would you give somebody just in a quick elevator pitch?
So I would tell you that at my age and the amount of experience that me and the fellows have had over the years and other bands, all this fun stuff, I wouldn't sign with a major. They own everything, right? At this point here, we or I or the band collectively own everything, right? Which means we have control. Right now, it's more perilous because you're investing your own money, and so that's a different thing. But have a plan regardless. Have set goals. This is what we want to do. Like our big goal when we first started was we wanted to release music. We wanted to get it out there so people would hear it. We wanted to learn something about the new process because we all grew up in the olden days with tapes and where it was albums, and now it's back to singles again because of the Spotify and the streaming stuff.
Yeah.
So, and then try to figure out where your revenue actually comes from. Have good merch, right? Play as many shows as you can. Be nice to everybody that you meet. And own it for as long as you can, because you see these guys that are selling their publishing catalogs now, it's because they own the publishing.
Yep.
Right. And these guys are retiring, their kids are retiring, right? The family is set for life if you happen to hit on something, The other thing I want to tell everybody too is don't do it for money. There's no money in it. It's like owning a boat, right? It's
don't
like
we know it?
Yep.
Yeah, don't we know it?
I did a seminar thing for kids and younger people and stuff like that with David Wines. I got invited to be on a panel with him over in Chicago a few years ago. And it's models and actresses and musicians and singers, and they all get together and they meet with agencies and they get interviews and all that kind of fun stuff. So they do these panels. And the questions that kept coming up from the parents were, how do I make my daughter the next Beyonce? How do I make my son the next Bon Jovi? Or like that. And I'm like, okay, well, first of all, it just doesn't work that way. I said, so this one's for the kids, right? If you don't need this with every fiber of your being, don't do it. Find something else. You'll be happier, right? Do drugs because it's cheaper.
Well, and you know what? You and I could be sitting here having a pre-out hockey conversation with parents or a music conversation, because the one thing that I find now, and I have my oldest son got into hip hop. He got very discouraged because he wasn't getting support. He's put pause on it, but he's starting to get back into it. And he said to me one time, he goes, "Dad, are you ever in a situation where your friends don't support you?" And I started laughing. I said, "I'm always in that situation. That's what the situation is." So I love what you're saying there, because really it's never been more evident to me that if you're not doing it for the love of it, man, you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
And hopefully that, I hate to say weed out, because everything that somebody does is valid. So I don't want to sound like that. There's bad music out there. Art's a perspective, right? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Your view of art is perspective, just like mine is, right? It doesn't mean either one's more or less valid, right? I used to tease my kids because my son got into hip hop for a while, my oldest boy. And he actually is a touring musician as well, but he does that electronic music, which I would never seek out. But I appreciate what it takes to go into it. It's a cool scene too. But I would tell him, when he was in the hip hop thing, I go, you know what the difference between your bands and my bands are? He goes, what? I said, my bands have been doing it longer than you've been alive, longer than I've been alive, right? And they're still popular. So not to mention the fact, if you put the Stones in a room with one of your guys, right? One of your guys will end up missing, another one's probably pregnant when it's all done, right? So
you're not wrong.
Yeah. But nowadays, I look at it with a little more of an open mind, because the internet and computerized recording and all that kind of fun stuff has done some really wonderful things. One, it's reduced costs for guys like us. We grew up with tape. Remember how expensive that was? How time consuming it was? But the benefit is if you recorded on tape, you'd better be rehearsed when you get there, or else you're costing yourself money. Right?
Dude,
where these kids can experiment endlessly now. you know.
I remember going in and recording an EP with my band that was we had a good run up here, and we had $900, and that was the studio time, the pressing of the tape, $900, and it was
Yeah.
like, you're right. And if there was a mistake, it was like it better, if it's a bad one, we'll fix it, but if it's an okay one, and so yeah, people just don't understand that. My friend, where are my viewers going to find out more about you guys and how to get your music and what you're up to? And I got a ton of people that are in Ontario that would cross the border to see you guys. So yeah, where are they going to find out more?
So we have our website, which is secondhandmojo.com, right? We also have YouTube, which, by the way, I don't know if Gina told you, that's one of the things that the big wins for Gina and us. Our last two videos combined did a little over 2 million, right?
That's incredible.
Yeah, and no purchase stuff. It was literally done with Google Ads.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. So I think total in the two of them, I might have $600 in Google Ads. Right.
Wow.
And it just went nuts. But our subscribers went from a few hundred to 8,000, right? You know, just for the YouTube by itself. And like I say, the last two videos, a little over 2 million combined. And our next video is coming out here relatively short. We're shooting the last of the principal for photography Thursday. So any of the streaming platforms, if you have a smartphone, right? If it's an Apple, just go Siri play Secondhand Mojo. It'll take you somewhere, right? That has it, right? We're on all the streaming platforms. There's a bunch of stuff out there you can find us. If you just look up Secondhand Mojo in Google, right? We've got the little extra box over there, and we've done enough internet stuff to where you'll see that, you know. So anywhere you get your music, you can find us.
Those views are that. So I basically, you know, when people go, oh, I can't believe it. To me, Spotify, whatever, man. Like, I just don't pay any attention to it. But I've been able to get, you know, Michelle's stuff probably combined. I mean, numbers aren't like that, but maybe 500,000 on
still cool,
three videos. I haven't tried to Google Ads. It's all been networking and all that stuff. So that might be something to look into. So good tip there.
Ask Gina. That's who did it for us. That's who's helped with that stuff for sure. So
I will do that for sure.
Yeah.
Look, my friend, and I didn't make a single Jerry Springer reference on this thing. So there you go. And I could have. I was thinking about it, but I didn't do it. So I want to thank you for your time, Vern, man. You know, this chat was just as much fun as the pre-recorded chat, which we covered hockey.
I appreciate that.
We didn't even talk Bob Probert once either, which is interesting. So
one of the all-time greats, dude. I actually played golf with a bunch of those guys, the alumni tournaments and stuff. They used to have the Easter Seals tournament here, and I played in that a bunch of times. So, but I do have my segue to hockey talk for our conversation.
Okay.
Right? First of all, there's no such thing as South Detroit. That is Windsor, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, that's the only place in North America where you can travel south and go to Canada. So in one of our songs, I reference, right, you know, to that South Detroit is Windsor, right, in one of our songs off this latest album. Right? So,
but you know, it's funny because people don't understand the geography of this country. Like, there's places in Manitoba that are further south than, you know, places in Minnesota and stuff like that. Are, you know, our country's so vast, and that's the downfall of touring Canada. And a lot of people will tell you is the distance between venues. Just to get where I am, typically, if you don't start here and move out, you're taking a day off to get here because it's a travel. So anyway, my friend, we got to do this again soon. I'd love to stay in touch. This was a great chat.
Yep. Make sure you ask Gina about those Google ads. She'll hook you up. She knows what to do.
I'm going to send her a message. Absolutely.
Yep. And if you need any help with that, let me know. Just because I'll give you.
I will. And you know what? I'm going to get her to connect us. I'm going to get her to connect us on email. Because, like I say, I live and die by my network, and you know, I'm very good at sharing information. And I'm good at receiving information. So yeah, this has been a great chat, my friend. Thanks a lot. Tune in again, guys. Bye.
Have a good one, brother. Thank you.